Just one more moment.
He's typing. Or live.
All right, go ahead and take us away, Allison.
Okay, great. Good morning, everybody. This is the Mendocino County Planning Commission meeting for March 4th, called to order at 9:04 a.m. Effective March 27th, 2020, the Mendocino County Planning Commission meetings will be conducted virtually and not available for in-person public participation. Meetings are live streamed and available for viewing on the Mendocino County YouTube page at www.youtube.com/Mendocino County Video. In order to minimize the risk of exposure during this time of emergency, the public may participate digitally in meetings by sending comments to pbscommissions@mendocinocounty.org in lieu of personal attendance. All public comment will be made immediately available to the commissioners, staff, and the general public as they are received and processed by staff, and can be viewed as attachments to this meeting agenda at the Planning Commission agenda page. Requests for telecomment are required to be submitted prior to 7 a.m. the morning of the meeting. If you requested to speak under public expression, please call in now. Great, and then turning it over to staff for roll call.
Commissioner Wiedemann,
Here.
Commissioner Jacobson, Commissioner Pollan,
Here.
Commissioner Jones, Commissioner Nelson,
Here.
Chair Purnell.
Here.
Thank you.
Great, and do we have a determination of legal notice?
Yeah, legal notice has been determined on each matter.
Great, thank you, Jim. Item number 3, the director's report.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, Nash Gonzalez, interim director. I just wanted to go ahead and just briefly let the planning commission know that we are in budget season right now. So we're looking at a few items in the budget, but we're also looking at a possible reorganization of the department. As I may have mentioned in the last meeting and the director's report previously, one of the things that we have been lacking over the last several years is the lack of long-range planning. So we are currently in the process of recruiting for a number of planning positions from senior level all the way down to the planner 1 level. And the idea is to staff up the long-range planning division. So again, recruitments are out and all of these are posted online. So if we know any local planners, yes, send them our direction because we are looking at staffing up. I may have reported at the last meeting that we have completed our final draft of the safety element, and that was submitted to CAL FIRE for their review. I was informed this week that we've been assigned a reviewer, and so they have up to 90 days to review the safety element, but I'm told that we may have a sooner review rather than later, so I'm hoping for that. So as soon as the review comments are in, we'll be scheduling the item for the Planning Commission for your review and recommendation to the Board of Supervisors. And so the next item, as you may already be aware of this, but we're going to be holding a special Planning Commission meeting on Friday, March 19th to address cannabis-related items. And that would conclude my report, and I'm available for any questions that the Commission may have.
Any questions for the director?
I just have Alex Sequeira.
Yes.
I just want to know who you are.
Yeah, I'm with the Department of Transportation.
Okay, thank you.
Seeing no other questions, we'll go ahead and close the director's report. Thank you for that report, Director Gonzalez.
Thank you.
And moving on to agenda item number 4, matters from the public. This is the public expression. The Planning Commission welcomes participation in commission meetings. This item is limited to matters under the jurisdiction of the commission that are not on the posted agenda and items which have not already been considered by the commission. No action will be taken. Individuals wishing to address the commission under public expression are welcome to do so via telecomment or email in lieu of personal attendance. Emails shall be sent to pbscommissions@mendocinocounty.org. All correspondence received will be made available at the Planning Commission agenda page. And telecomment requests must have been put in by 7 a.m. this morning prior to the meeting. Do we have any requests for telecomment at this time?
We have received no telecomments.
Okay, no telecomments then,
Yeah, no telecomments and no correspondence.
and no correspondence. Okay, well, I guess we'll just move on to agenda item number 5, consent calendar. We have none. Moving on to agenda item 6A on our regular calendar. This is case number MS 2020-0002, Felice Creek Business Park LLC. The request is a minor subdivision of 54 acres into 4 parcels and 1 remainder parcel. Parcel 1 would be 4.78 acres. Parcel 2 would be approximately 3.12 acres. Parcel 3 would be approximately 2.85 acres, and parcel 4 would be approximately 3.26 acres with a 40-acre remainder parcel. Okay, at this time, would staff like to make a presentation?
Yes, thank you. Planner Juliana Cherry with Mendocino County. It's my pleasure to present this minor subdivision to the Planning Commission. Thank you for describing the parcel sizes, and the applicant is proposing creating 4 parcels and 1 40-acre remainder parcel. Roughly 14 acres would be divided into the 4 parcels. The land associated with these 4 proposed parcels are classified as industrial and located within the industrial zoning district. The 4 proposed parcels would front Felice Creek Road, and the southern property line is Felice Creek and include portions of a mapped floodway. The 40 remaining acres would be split zoned. There's agriculture and suburban residential classifications on those remaining 40 acres. North of the project site, the properties are zoned residential, and we have received some public comment from someone who lives in a residential district with concerns about having industrial development on this property. What's proposed is subdivision of already classified industrial land. There's no proposed change in the land use classification or the zoning districts. What is proposed is creating 4 smaller parcels and 1 40-acre remaining parcel. The project was referred out and we did receive comments. It also went to the subdivision committee. Comments from the utility district were received, and their comments are included in the staff report on page 3. The utility district furnished a letter saying that they could provide service to the proposed subdivision, but the service in the district is limited. So future development, additional service to future development would be considered at the time that that development is proposed. The property is also located in the Hopland Community Planning area, and staff did send a referral package to the Hopland Area Council, and no response was received. It seems that the Hopland Area Council has changed their mailing address, but hasn't given notice to planning and building. And so we have tried to reach out to close that gap in communication, but we haven't received any formal comments from the Hopland MAC. I did review the general plan goals for the Hopland area and included them in the staff report on page 4. And went over those goals with the applicant, encouraging them when they do come forward with development that they consider working with the Hopland Area Council on things like signage or the architecture of the buildings. But those kinds of conditions really are not typically included in a subdivision as conditions. And so staff has not included those as suggested reminders as a condition or even a requirement of the subdivision. The conditions that are included in the resolution are those that were supported by the subdivision committee, and they are fairly standard. If you have questions, I'm happy to go over them, but I won't go over them in detail at this time. Thank you. I am available if you have questions.
Thank you. And are there any questions from commissioners for staff? Commissioner Nelson.
Good morning. I read one comment from a citizen about the infill and the potential for more flooding in the subdivision area. In the past, we've asked subbuyers or builders to raise their buildings up rather than building up the site with gravel or dirt. Is there any potential for that in this case so that it doesn't increase the flooding of the nearby area?
So the floodway is shown on the map of the proposed subdivision. A development would not be allowed within the floodway. There are very specific conditions under which a building permit could be allowed in the floodway. I also personally called California Fish and Wildlife and asked them for comments about the subdivision since it was adjacent to Feely's Creek. I do not believe that the applicant is proposing any development within the floodway or the flood zone. The areas and impervious surfaces would be outside of the floodway. And at this modern time, that's kind of challenging because water courses do tend to migrate and they're not really static in their location. You might have a winter of extraordinary rains and the waters may go above what FEMA has determined is the historic flood area. So when the applicant does come in for building permits, they will be required to meet state standards for buildings at that location, including standards for potential inundation from water. I don't know if that's a really direct answer to your question. We can follow up if you have more. Thank you.
And if I may just add on to that, so what Juliana was saying is correct. The building, future development on this site will be subject to building permits. And as part of that, our building division administers our floodplain ordinance. The building official is the floodplain administrator. And so with that, any developer has a choice in terms of how they handle development of those structures. They can choose to either look to essentially see a letter of map revision issued by FEMA, where they may raise the property out of the floodplain area and receive a letter of map revision or a little letter of map amendment. It's a LOMR or a LOMA. And then the other option is to get that certification from an engineer to demonstrate that the base floor of whatever structure they're building is above that floodplain area. So that's where you've seen these conditions have come through on a number of projects, and the floodplain related conditions are on page 4 of the resolution and conditions 7 through 9. So the first one, and I'll just read this in here, just saying that it requires that the flooding area be clearly identified on the parcel map and be based upon a civil engineer's report. And then additionally, there's restrictions, and as Juliana was saying, with notes appearing on the map, one, that development within the floodplain as identified on the map is subject to restrictions of the floodplain regulations. And then secondarily, that you cannot store any toxic, hazardous, or contaminated materials or waste within the designated buffer area or clearly identified floodplain or floodway. So I believe concerns are addressed through these standard conditions, because it really becomes a decision by the property owner when they choose to develop the site, how they wish to construct those buildings.
So really the decision be made at a later date. Is that what I'm hearing? All right, thank you.
Any other questions for staff?
I have a question for staff. I drove out there and I drove around and I looked at the site, and it was already like parceled and graded. So they already had a permit in place to do the work they did on to create the 3 extra lots next to the first parcel 1 has the building on it. Looks like it's either going to be a brewery or something. And I like the idea that the fire department's right next to this, being the industrial. So did they get the permits for regrading those 3 parcels? That was all in order?
Right. So if you look on the staff report on page 2, there is a list of related applications.
Right.
They have gotten a grading permit in 2020,
Yeah.
utility permit in 2020, a tenant improvement. They've been doing a lot of work on what is an existing legal lot. So to answer your question, yes.
Yes, I see that. Then the other question I had in the use permit U5-91, what was the use permit for? And if you don't have that off the fingertips, that's okay. It was just a curiosity for me.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I do not know the history of the use permit.
They had actually a couple use permits during that time, 3 use permits actually. 1, 2, maybe even 4. Anyway, it was just I just wanted to get the history of how, you know, that parcel developed. And I have one more question and then I'll pass, is the 40 acres, the remaining 40 acres, access to that 40-acre piece. On the maps, when I'm looking at that, would they be on access? There seems to be like can they get to that 40 acres without crossing the creek?
Yes, there is access, direct access from Feliz Creek Road. I see on the exhibit in the staff report that the tentative subdivision map doesn't really show that access. It doesn't really show the extent of the 40-acre remaining parcel. Okay. But that 40-acre remaining parcel does have sort of a flag on the west side of parcel 4 that does connect directly to Feliz Creek Road. I think if you look at the little total site up in the corner on the right of the tentative map, there the entire 40-acre parcel is shown with a red, the whole 54 acres. It's in the upper right-hand corner of the tentative map exhibit.
Yes, on the
it's just before attachment E in the attachments to the staff report.
Oh, okay, so it's that flag right there.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay, and that's from Mountain. It's actually kind of on the corner there, isn't it? Of Mountain House.
Yeah, it fronts both Mountain House Road, but it also it's very hard to see in there, but just I believe just west of parcel 4, there's a very narrow egress directly to Feliz Creek Road.
So yeah, west of the creek is what we're saying too, correct?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Commissioner Pollan?
Thank you, Chair Parnell. Thank you. Just again, this is only my second meeting, so pardon me for any dumb questions I might ask. But I recognize that there's not a change in the land use designation of this, but there must be a contemplated change in the intensity of use from a subdivision like this. And I'm just curious how that is addressed from the planning division perspective, because it was raised in some of the comments received from the public in terms of the amount of traffic and activity on a road that is predominantly residential.
Right. So the property has been zoned industrial for some time, and the county actually has very few acres assigned to industrial, which is kind of a shame because industrial is a source of economic commerce. It provides things like employment. It provides a manufacturing and distribution of goods, and the distribution of goods and materials manufactured right here in Mendocino. So this property for a long time has been identified as industrial. And so in the staff report, you'll see that in the initial study, you'll see that staff did look a little bit at transportation. I looked at peak travel periods associated with typical industrial land use and the time periods for that. And also there is that typical statement that you see that when the general plan was adopted, we at that time as a county, as an agency, looked at the issues associated with transportation. But for many years, this property hasn't been developed. So there will be a change. It's just that the change is finally happening. We analyzed at the time that we adopted the general plan that these properties would be industrial, that there would be more traffic associated with industrial land use, like deliveries of goods and materials, and also sending them out of the Hopland area for distribution. This property is also near one of the old train stations, and I think the long-term plan for the Marin-Sonoma Rapid Transit SMART is very, for us, it's not going to happen tomorrow, but to extend that line north. And so there will be, this industrial land will be near a functioning railroad for other kinds of distribution, as well as for people to come to the Hopland area for work.
I would just like to add on to that, Julia Krog, Assistant Director, and just to state that, since the site, the land use designation and the zoning designation are not changing on these sites. So today, this site could be developed with additional industrial uses and just be subject to obtaining a building permit and possibly development review if that was triggered. So it's important to remember that, this is unlike a residential subdivision where you actually increase the residential density across sites. This is an industrial type of site. So this parcel could be developed with additional industrial uses. We don't have a density limitation on industrial uses. It's really what the site can support when you meet the standards or going through that development review process. So this really does not increase the density or intensity of use of land by doing this subdivision. It could be established in a similar, it could be developed in a similar capacity with or without the subdivision being proposed.
Thank you for that.
Any additional questions for staff?
I just real quick, Julia, you mentioned, Juliana, you mentioned that there was a letter received from the Hopland Utility District, and I didn't see that in the packet, but was there a letter provided that said at the current time they could provide services to the site if subdivided?
Right. I did receive a response to a request for comments from the utility district, and I summarized their comments on page 3 of the staff report. The district has limited surplus capacity available to provide water and sewer service to the proposed subdivision. Depending upon the type of facilities being proposed, will determine whether the district will have capacity available to provide service. And that was received in July of last summer.
And it's just important to note in the conditions of approval for this project, there was actually 2 sets of conditions provided by environmental health for this. One set really speaks to whether or not, if the district is unable to provide adequate service to the intended uses, that these parcels are sized in such a way that they can accommodate on-site water and septic if need be. So you'll see in the resolution, there's 2 sets of conditions that sort of relate to that. So those are on page 5 of the resolution, and conditions 13, 15, and 16.
Mhm. Right.
Given the non-committal nature of that letter, I did notice that the conditions would meet either circumstance, you know, whether services were able to be provided or not able. So that's staff definitely gets credit for covering the bases there. Any other questions for staff before we move on? Okay, do we have the applicant here today?
Yes, we do. We can bring them over now. I see there's actually 2 logins for this, so I'm going to bring over Gary Breen here into the meeting. And Gary, when you're ready, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. And there's the other person on the call is just works in my office, because I wanted to make sure if I had to step out, she would let me know that you guys were ready. So I just wanted to make sure I was around.
Well, thanks, Gary. The floor is yours. And if you can just state your name for the record, please.
It's Gary Breen, B-R-E-E-N, and it's I live in Hopland.
And did you have a presentation or anything you wanted to share with the commission today?
No, I mean, I'll just say, I mean, I've owned the property for about 4 years, and I purchased the property mainly because as some of you might or might not know, I'm very pro Hopland. I have lots of projects going on with hotels and wineries and such. So I really saw a need to, this land has been vacant for years and years. And so I really saw a need for some industrial uses. So I owned it for about 4 years. I wasn't able to do anything. So I just kind of, sat and waited till the right opportunity came. And so I acted last year, right when COVID was hitting. We decided to build our first building. It's basically a state-of-the-art, almost 60,000 square feet winery, 1 million gallons of stainless steel capacity. We're currently storing bulk wine from a bunch of Mendocino companies and their case goods. So it was really seen as a service facility to keep product and wine that's leaving our county for producers here. So we over the course of 2020 and COVID, we spent about $12 million on our first building. It's fully occupied at this moment. We finished in August, right before the harvest. And, literally right after that, we were able to fill it with case goods and bulk wine from all over Mendocino. So I like to say every contractor that we hired was Mendocino based, every single one. And we were really adamant about that. And so, we really felt like from keeping business in the county, certainly was fantastic. We paid the fire district almost $75,000, the biggest one-time fee ever. They recently raised their rates to $1.20 a square foot, and they were 20 cents a square foot 30 days before I pulled my building permit. So where Vintage Wine Estates and Duckhorn and some of the other ones that have built buildings recently, they were under the 20 cents, and I was the first one under the $1.20. So I'm very close to the fire department there. They just bought a new fire engine, specifically, I think it was specifically purchased to service buildings like mine, Duckhorn and Vintage Wine Estates. Fetz are some of the bigger wineries that they couldn't protect with their existing equipment. So my $80,000 fee, I think, bought that new, bought the new engine. So, I've been meeting with the fire department recently because I've been telling them potentially about what we're going to build on the site in terms of additional wine buildings. And so I think they're pretty excited about meeting some of their monetary obligations and budget obligations going forward. Secondly, the district, utility district, I'll make a quick comment. I don't know if this is a good thing. I'm probably the biggest user in the district with Camp Avita and the hotels and this property. I mean, in terms of our total hookups, we are one of their larger, if not largest customer. So their financial wherewithal and their ability to serve the customers in Hopland is utmost importance to me. We are in their jurisdiction there. They do have capacity now. I do understand that can change. Can change in a minute's notice if someone wanted to build more residential and such. But we're currently within their district and they currently have capacity. And just so you know, I mean, the capacities that we use for industrial buildings, our first building of 60,000 feet is basically 2 ADA bathrooms. So, our water and sewer impacts in the district are very minor compared to residential uses where you have a subdivision of 50 homes or whatever. So, yeah, I think we're super excited. We're going to do it in a tasteful way. The 40-acre remainder parcel, we basically own all the way to the houses over there and almost to the school on this property, and it winds all the way up the creek. So, my hope has always been, and I've talked to the county about this, of creating some roadway or trail system. We can't use that property. It's in the floodway. And in my opinion, the first thing we can do is try to preserve that creek. I'm constantly fighting with, ATVs and motorcycles and all the various things that, use that creek as their play yard, which, isn't cool for sure. So, my long-term goal with the 40-acre remainder parcel is to try to figure out, maybe a loop trail system, very low impact, kind of a walking trail type situation where people could go all the way up to almost the end of Beckstoffer on Faley's Creek and then do a loop. So I have a lot of high hopes, certainly for Hopland, but also for people that come visit the town. There's no real parks or anything here. So, and, access to the river and to some of the amazing stuff we have here is severely limited. So that's kind of my goal long-term, to bring some really county-focused industrial uses there that have local employment, designed around local wines, local stuff. So, I think, given that we started this building I think we pulled the building permit for the 60,000 in March of last year, this time last year. And the fact that I think we have 8 employees over there and we've raised the tax roll. The main reason for the subdivision, folks, is because I have a loan on that property with American Ag for a winery. And the problem is I can't do another building because they have their underlying collateral on all 50 acres. So one of the reasons for having subdivision is if I'm going to build another building, we pulled a grading permit last year to build another building, and to do that, I'm going to have to get another loan, and American Ag won't do it unless I separate the properties. So that's kind of the plan, I'm super excited about what we've done, and we're certainly very focused on Hopland. We don't as a company, we don't go too far beyond that.
Thank you, Gary. Are there any questions from commissioners for him?
No.
No questions? I'll jump in with one. Gary, you seem like you're really embedded in the community and, working closely with the players in Hopland. I was curious if you have had any interaction with the Hopland MAC about some of the issues identified in the staff report that might be issues that you would consult with them on, in particular, maintaining the historic character and also the signage issues?
So my wife was on the board for, I think, 4 years. So she was very active on the board. I think she recently left the board. Your answer is absolutely. I'll meet with the board. My position as Hopland has always been a doer. Like, I'm more interested in doing things versus meeting about things. And just kind of going around and around. We've had some, like big agenda items in that board that we really hit stonewalls on. And so, my position has always been, do things right, do the best you can when you're updating, like the Thatcher Hotel. I mean, we spent millions on that thing, and we can't even get a road on Center Street that doesn't have potholes. So, I've talked to the county, so we're working really hard. And to answer your question, yeah, I think the MAC is great. They meet regularly. I support all the things that they're doing. So any future projects, certainly I would go to them and tell them what I'm up to and get their inputs, certainly. So that's a yes.
Okay, great. So if it was the will and direction of the commission, you wouldn't be opposed to a condition of approval that just said you would go and present it to the MAC and accept feedback?
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. There's not a problem with that. I mean, that's something that I wish our MAC had more power. And that was always been my problem with the MAC, is that, we haven't had much power, and we propose a lot of things, but we can't get them done. So, yes, and yes. And I wish our little town had a little bit more say in the things that are happening, but the answer is yes.
That's great, Gary, because that sort of is the sticking point with the MACs, because the MACs really don't have any teeth whatsoever. They're just supposed to be the liaison between the community and the county. And so I think just bringing your project to them for their input doesn't necessarily give them any decision-making power, but it would certainly give them input, and seems to be in line with what a MAC can do. And they can do something to be, productive in the community and might actually see results from it. And I sat on a MAC for many, many years, and anytime we had a result here or there, it was a very exciting day.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, public input, hopefully with a little bit of teeth, is the way things get done correctly. People just, I mean, the county's there for protection and with zoning and such. I mean, and I'll be the first one to say, I mean, Faley's Creek, there's no requirements. And if you drive up there in a year on Faley's Creek Road between the fire station and the end of our property, you will see the frontage 100% landscape. Bioswales, landscape, natural landscaping, low impact, large olive trees. I mean, we're going to do like a really nice job on Faley's Creek. There's zero requirement at the county level to do that. And, I mean, for people that are just in and out of the community, they're not long-term. I mean, that's the thing we have to be really worried about, because, I have no intention of going anywhere. And, my thing is like long-term thinking. So why wouldn't I landscape the whole frontage? Because it looks good, and it ties everything in, and it beautifies things. So it's something that should be done. Unfortunately, I think so much of our area down here is, I'm not sure if it's people that, said they didn't want to be, they didn't want the county messing with them or whatever the deal was. But things like that, I think, are super important. And, some, better landscaping requirements and around future developments down here, man, I'm thumbs up all for it. And yeah, although I'm a developer, I'm very, 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 I believe that we have to do things right. They have to look good. They have to work right. Traffic's important. Lighting. I mean, if you see the lighting that we did at this building, I don't know if you guys have been out to vintage wine estates and seen their lighting compared to this one. I mean, this is absolutely low impact. You know, I think that all the downlights, they're completely downlights. It's just, we've done a good job with lighting. I'm a big advocate of low impact lighting. So yeah, I think the MAC, and I think we need to get on this a little bit more. And I totally support going to the MAC and fielding their calls and questions, and even about the flood zone here. You know, that property's been in that state for 20 years. And we got our site in the building certified by Ron France at I think we had to be 50133. So the slab itself on the building is 50133, which is the certified county level out of the flood zone. So, you know, there's a lot of work in there with that flood zone and FEMA and everything else that kind of goes kind of unseen. But yeah, you've heard my story here, and I absolutely will. You can make that condition that I present any project to the MAC.
Great, thank you, Gary. Well, are there any other questions before we move on to see if there's public comment? Okay, staff, do you know if we have any members of the public wishing to address this item?
We have no telecomments submitted, but there was one letter that's been posted to the website, and that's the only correspondence I received.
Okay, and I don't believe I received that letter. That might have come in just recently and been posted to the website. Can you summarize that for the commissioners and those watching?
Sure, this was from Donna Wilsey, and this one was received on February 25th. So, and that was posted to the website, and it really, they are in opposition to the project. They do live in the Hopland community. They're concerned about the large building that was constructed next to the fire department and the amount of dirt that was hauled in and the general appearance of the structure. In addition, they're concerned about the changing the flow of the water in Felice Creek. They also go on to talk about just some of the makeup of Felice Creek and past flooding events that had occurred. And they close out the letter with really speaking that they're not against growth for Hopland, but they're concerned that this subdivision would wipe out most of Hopland in a flood. Let's see, what else do we have here? And then they were also concerned about whether or not the water and sewer system in Hopland could support this. And they closed the letter with stating, "I hope you will consider the possibilities and deny this project. This should not be approved until a levee is constructed on the west side of Felice Creek."
Thank you for summarizing that letter, Julia. It is now the point where we bring the discussion back to the commission.
And just to make sure we have it clear on the record, are we closing the public hearing at this time?
We are now closing the public hearing and bringing it back to the commission for discussion. Commissioner Nelson, did you have anything you wanted to discuss?
So my main concern was related to the letter that was just read, and the answer I received was satisfactory for me, and I think it's a good project and we should approve it.
Commissioner Wiedemann.
I visited the site. I see, the issues around the creek and the water table, the high water table, and the floodplain. But I think they've done a good job, and that I think it's an appropriate place actually next to the fire department. And I do like that, it's a winery, that new building that they're creating. I think I don't have any problems with it. I think staff did a good job at covering the issues and presenting it, and I thank you. Thank you.
Commissioner Pollan.
I feel satisfied with the staff report and the conditions that are placed on this project, and I'd be in favor of approving it as well.
And then the only other thing that I wanted to add is the issue that I spoke to earlier. You know, I don't believe I've ever seen a condition of approval where we're asking the applicant to consult with the MAC, but I would be in favor of adding that condition. That would strictly be a consultation with the Hopland MAC. And I think the rationale for that is really because the goals, in order for the goals and policies and the Hopland Community Plan to truly be met, there needs to be a chance for the applicant to really have that interface with the community. And he has indicated that he is willing to do so. I'm curious if staff has anything to add about, you know, the logistics of an applicant consulting with the MAC, and like, would we need to see any proof or a letter, or, you know, do you have any experience with this, and can you comment?
Sure. Thank you for turning over to staff on this. So there is a policy that the board established that relates to MACs, Municipal Advisory Councils, and that's policy 51 in our various policies from the county. And really, MACs, their authority is limited to review of discretionary projects. While someone could meet with them about a ministerial activity such as future development on this site, there is not actually that they have any authority over approval or denial of that. It's solely advisory. So, you know, my concern would be, we did refer the subdivision application to the MAC. I understand that we did not receive a response, and I believe Planner Cherry indicated there may have been some concern about the mailing address associated with that. But what I would be a little bit concerned about is making a condition rather than having this clearly spelled out in the meeting minutes, and as more of you know, detailing that the commission advised and encouraged the property owner to reach out to the Hopland MAC and consult with them related to the development of the site, and that the property owner did state they were in agreement and would do that. I'd be a little concerned about making it a condition of approval, just because then the property owner will have to, if we make it a condition, we have to demonstrate how it's satisfied within those 24 months. And I'm just not quite sure what that would necessarily look like, because what I could see as a concern is if the Hopland MAC has some significant concerns about it, I'm not sure how that would really be resolved. It'd be happening, you know, after the action being taken by the Planning Commission on this application. So I would at least encourage the commission to think about having this be very detailed in the minutes that are produced for this meeting, as opposed to making it a condition of approval. But if you wish to see a condition, then I would just need a few minutes to work on some language and make sure that it's clear that it's more advisory and that an encouragement to the property owner, and less so a mandatory type of condition.
Thank you for that. That's very helpful. And I would be satisfied with just making this a recommendation to the applicant, and as you've stated, having it clearly spelled out in the meeting minutes.
Excellent. We will capture that. I'm looking at Jim here right now. We're going to make sure that's clearly spelled out in the meeting minutes that will come back for this. And we'll also note about the discussion with the applicant and their agreement to that as well.
I have one final question.
Okay, go ahead.
For Commissioner Pollan, your background is stunning. How did you, I need to do something like that. That's I don't know how you do it, but it's looks amazing.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm not a great Zoom person, but if you search online for virtual background in Zoom, and you can put any picture you want there.
Wow.
That way you don't have to see the mess of my office.
That's great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think at this point, we're looking for a motion.
Well, I'll make a motion. It's in my district, District 5. It's always hard to believe that's part of District 5, Hopland area, but it is. I make a motion to approve MS 2020-0002, Felice Creek Business Park, LLC. Do you want me to read this whole resolution, Julia?
Nope, you can just read, if you look at the bottom of the staff report on page 5 of the staff report, report, there's a very short recommendation there for the commission to consider.
Okay, thank you. Let me get to that. Yes, okay, thank you. By resolution, adopt the negative declaration and grant a 4-lot based subdivision based on the facts and findings and subject to the conditions of approval in Exhibit A.
I would like to second the motion.
We have a first and a second.
Ready for roll call?
Yep.
Okay. Commissioner Nelson,
Yes.
Commissioner Wiedemann,
Yes,
Commissioner Pollan,
Yes.
and Chair Purdell.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 4-0.
All right. Very good. Moving on to item 6B, which is case number UR 2020-0011. The applicant and agent are ATC Sequoia and John Merritt. The request is a use permit renewal for continued operation of an existing 72-foot tall wireless communication tower with various antennas and ground-based equipment located within a 2,900 square foot leased area. No modifications are proposed. And we are ready for the staff report on that.
Hey, good morning, Commissioners. Mark Kleiser, Planner 2, planner for this project. Before I make my presentation, I'd like to point out a change that's been made to the resolution. Page 1, item 3 discusses the use permit findings. After review, it was discovered that use permit finding D was left out. That finding has been added to the resolution. As indicated, the request is for renewal and continued operation of existing 72-foot tall wireless communication facility within a 2,500 square foot lease secured area. Previous improvements to the leased area include the 72-foot tall monopine tower, a backup diesel generator, a 210-gallon diesel fuel tank, 2 GPS antennas, and a 240 square foot equipment shelter. No modifications to the existing facility are proposed at this time. However, as more than 180 days have passed since the governing use permit expired, Planning Commission approval is required for continued use. The project is located on a 40-acre host parcel, approximately a quarter-mile east of Piercy, and is accessed off a private road. The host parcel has a general plan designation of remote residential and is zoned upland residential. It is primarily utilized for a residence and features a single-family home, a barn, and an accessory dwelling unit. The continued use of the wireless facility will not interfere with the intended residential or agricultural uses for the upland residential zoning designation. Continued use of the facility conforms with both the general plan and zoning designations, which allow for wireless communication facilities. Additionally, the project supports the county's economic development principle 2-2B, which is intended to support and promote telecommunications and information technology to all areas of the county. On November 4th, 2020, staff visited the site and found that the tower and facilities were well maintained. Utilities, access road, drainage, and other necessary facilities are provided. Given the tower has been in operation in its current location since 2008 and no modifications are being proposed, staff finds the project will not constitute a nuisance to the area. The nearest adjacent dwelling staff is aware of is on the subject parcel of, the nearest adjacent dwelling not on the subject parcel is approximately 650 feet southeast of the project tower. Staff evaluated the project for consistency with the county's wireless communication facilities guidelines and the towers and antennas chapter of the Mendocino County Code and found that with recommended conditions of approval, it is in conformance with both. No improvements have been made to the location since 2008 when the facility was constructed. The continued use of the project is not expected to generate additional traffic and trips will be limited to regular maintenance. As an existing facility, the project is categorically exempt from CEQA, and staff recommends approval of the project with conditions. That concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to take any questions.
And Chair Purnell, I just want to show the commission very quickly here the additional finding that Mr. Kleiser was mentioning. So what you should see here is the resolution, and this, so it'll trickle over onto page 2, but it's just adding this finding D that states that such continued use preserves the integrity of the zoning district, and that is the only change. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Julia. And are there, Commissioner Jones, hello.
Whoops. And Commissioner Jones, you are on mute.
I apologize profusely. My calendar had this as 10 a.m. And obviously the agenda says 9 a.m. So I am very sorry because I was just sitting here waiting to start at 10. It's terrible. Anyway.
We're glad you're here. Okay, great. It is time for commission questions for staff.
We're on the Feliz Creek Business Park.
We have completed Feliz Creek, and we are now on the cell tower, American Tower Corporation, UR 2020-0011.
Did you have enough people to vote on Feliz Creek?
Yes.
We did.
Sorry, I missed it. I had great ideas and comments. I felt so stupid.
So Deputy County Counsel Matthew Kudrowski, if I could chime in, if Commissioner Jones didn't hear the staff presentation for the current item, I might ask that Mr. Kleiser kind of review that. So Commissioner Jones has the same information as the rest of the commission, and then the minutes can note that she joined prior to the, for this item, she heard the entire report. That would make it clear that she could vote on it and had the same information as the commission.
I did read the entire report, if that makes a difference.
Were you here for the staff report, the entirety of it?
No, I was not.
Okay.
I can also leave if you guys would prefer, just to not have to listen to it again.
Deputy County Counsel Matthew Kudrowski, I'll leave that to the discretion of the commissioner. But it was a short presentation. I just want to make sure that all commissioners were present for the entire presentation.
Commissioner Jones, what's your pleasure on this one?
It's up to the commission. I'm happy to stay. I guess I'll just stay. Again, I'm very sorry. I literally thought it started at 10. I'll know in the future that they always start at 9.
Okay, and Matt, will Commissioner Jones be able to vote on this item if she does not hear a repeat of the staff report?
I think since the staff report took approximately 2 to 3 minutes, I would just recommend doing that briefly.
Let's go ahead and repeat that then. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, once again, Mark Kleiser, Planner 2, Plan for the project. I initially pointed out that there was a change made to the resolution this morning. Page 1, item 3 discussed the use permit findings, and after review, it was discovered that finding D was left out. That has been replaced. As indicated earlier, the request is for a renewal and continued operation of an existing 70-foot tall wireless communication facility within a 2,500 square foot leased and secured area. Previous improvements in the leased area include the 72-foot tall monopine tower, a backup diesel generator, a 210-gallon diesel fuel tank, 2 GPS antennas, and a 240 square foot equipment shelter. No modifications to the existing facility are proposed. However, as more than 180 days have passed since the governing use permit expired, Planning Commission approval is required for continued use of the tower. The project is located on a 40-acre host parcel, approximately a quarter-mile east of Piercy, and is accessed off a private road. The host parcel has a general plan designation of remote residential and is zoned upland residential. It is primarily utilized as a residence and features a single-family home, a barn, and an accessory dwelling unit. The continued use of the wireless facility will not interfere with the intended residential and agricultural uses for the upland residential zoning district. Continued use of the facility conforms to both the general plan and zoning designations, which allow for wireless communication facilities. Additionally, the project supports the county's economic development principle, item 2-2B, which is intended to support and promote telecommunications and information technology to all areas of the county. On November 4th, 2020, staff visited the site and found that it was well maintained. Adequate utilities, access road, drainage, and other necessary facilities are provided. Given the tower has been in operation in its current location since 2008 and no modifications are being proposed, staff finds the project will not constitute a nuisance to the area. The nearest adjacent dwelling staff is aware of that is not on the subject parcel is approximately 650 feet southeast of the project. Staff evaluated the project for consistency with the county's wireless communication facilities guidelines and the Towers and Antennas chapter of the Mendocino County Code and found that with the recommended conditions of approval, it is in conformance with both. No improvements have been made to the location since 2008 when it was originally constructed. The continued use of the project is not expected to generate additional traffic, and trips will be limited to regular maintenance. As an existing facility, the project is categorically exempt from CEQA, and staff recommends approval of the project with conditions.
Great, thank you again for that, Mark. And commissioners, any questions for staff? Commissioner Pollan.
I'm noting that in one of the conditions for approval is that the permit shall automatically expire on March 4th, 2031, unless the applicant submits a request for renewal. And the current permit, just so I'm clear, has expired. Is that correct? Or the reason that we're asking it's coming before the Planning Commission now is because the earlier permit is no longer valid?
Yeah, that is correct.
Is there a penalty or any sort of enforcement mechanism that compels an applicant to come to renew on time?
I can say that at least our code does allow, I should say, they should be filing their renewals on time, and our conditions say that we do not notify you prior to expiration. It's really their responsibility. However, we do have provisions in our code that allow the extension of completion of conditions by the planning director and our office by 180 days. So that's where if somebody files for their renewal within those 180 days, it's almost like it can be a grace period if agreed upon by the director in our office to allow that. Otherwise, they would potentially require an entirely new use permit and have to start all over again and essentially be asking for after the fact approval. Otherwise, if they file on time, we have a provision in our code that allows for administrative renewal of towers and other use permits, provided that there's no change in the conditions and it's issued for the same number of years as the original permit was issued for.
I guess I'm a little confused in that it looks like, according to the nomenclature of the dates, that this original use permit was issued in 2008. Was it granted for longer than a 10-year period?
More pleasure, planner. No, it was not. It did expire in 2018.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions from commissioners?
I have a quick question. I don't know if we should raise our hand or lower our hand or what. So I just have a kind of general overarching question about use permits and the use of terms on them and expirations. Admittedly, my experience is within the city of Fort Bragg, and we didn't have termination periods for our use permit. They just ran continuously with the land unless someone stopped operating the business for more than a year, and then the permit was automatically terminated. And I'm just curious about the workload on staff having these use permits that come back every 10 years or however often they do. If generally you're always re-upping them, does it make sense to keep doing this? Because it seems like a lot of extra work for you if generally the planning commission does renew, and maybe the idea should be that you only do these conditional use permits with a shorter time period when there's a use that you think is kind of debatable. I don't know. That's just a kind of general question.
Sure. Thank you for that question. And normally I would say, yes, let's remove the limitation and the expiration date, but our code actually requires that we cannot grant them for longer than 10 years for use permits for cell towers. So that's the limitation. And that's solely for cell towers. For other types of development, we can have alternative expiration dates, but cell towers are locked in at a 10-year term.
Interesting.
Maybe something to consider revising in the future. We'll see as we go through, you know, with our funding to update our inland zoning code. Who knows, that might be something that we look to tackle as well, because I do agree it is a workload, especially when there's no changes to the tower, and it seems more like an exercise to demonstrate there's still a need for that tower and just re-upping the term limits. So.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Nope.
I had one for staff, and it's kind of a general question, and it's about the VMT tool that MCOG is using. If I recall correctly, the last two cell tower use permit renewals, we also saw the results of this MCOG screening tool. But in the last two, because of the remoteness of the site, presumably, it didn't pass the thresholds to meet the greenhouse gas emission targets. However, this one does. And that's great, but I'm curious if staff can share with us, you know, based on your knowledge of this tool, why does this one pass but the others don't? Is it, you know, purely the proximity to the 101, or what do you think the other factors are?
Mark Kleiser, staff planner. Yes, exactly. The location off 101 and near the town of Piercy would probably constitute its passing the screening tool for VMT.
Okay, great. And I'll go ahead and put in another request that at some point it would be, I think, beneficial to the commission to have even like a brief presentation on the screening tool, just so we can understand, you know, what the inputs are. I think we see the output, but without having an understanding of the inputs that go into the modeling, it's hard to kind of grok the whole situation. But I do appreciate that explanation. Thank you, Mark.
That's great. We can work on agendizing something for that in the future. And then in the meantime, we can share with you some of the public documents related to how they determine thresholds of significance. This was primarily done by MCOG and working with Fair and Pierce as the consulting firm. And there are various documents that describe the VMT analysis, describe the screening tool, and the thresholds of significance related to it. So we'll be sure to share that and then maybe agendize something after you've had a chance to review some of those materials as well.
That would be awesome. Thank you. Okay, if there's no other questions for commissioners, let's go ahead and hear from the applicant if they're here today.
Yes, we do have the applicant available here. I'm bringing over Mr. Merritt here into the conversation. And Mr. Merritt, when you are ready to speak, just go ahead and unmute yourself. And it is *6 to unmute on a telephone. And please be sure to state your name for the record.
Good morning, John Merritt from American Tower. Thank you very much for agendizing this. First, we just wanted to compliment planning staff. We work with many jurisdictions around the state, and it's just been a delight to work with Planner Kleiser and Planner Holmes on another project down in Mendocino. We really appreciate the professionalism and responsiveness. Regarding the expiration of the permit, I guess it's just a big mea culpa for that, with an explanation, please. American Tower acquired quite a number of sites from Verizon Wireless several years ago, and it appears that among all of them, it was not recognized that some of those permits were up for expiration. As mentioned earlier, some permits expire, some don't. This particular one obviously was for 10 years. And in that acquisition, apparently it was not discovered that the permit expired in 2018 until just last year. We do have other mechanisms in place at a corporate level. American Tower operates about 50,000 sites nationally. So we can assure you that is very unlikely that would happen again, and we will certainly try to maintain currency with all of the permits. So thank you for your understanding of that issue. I can't really add much to Mr. Kleiser's presentation. We met on site back in November, as he indicated. The site is well maintained. We submitted a visual analysis from 101. Very few places of visibility. I actually had to drive back and forth along 101 by Piercy to determine points from which the site is visible. It's a monopine and it's quite well disguised up on the hill. There are no modifications proposed to it at this time. So unless there are any questions, we ask for commission approval for the renewal, please.
Thank you. And are there any questions for the applicant? Okay, well, seeing none, I guess we will open the public hearing. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak?
There are no members of the public who've requested to speak under this item.
Okay, we will close the public hearing and then move on to any discussion from commission members. Anybody? Okay, I don't see anything, so I think we're ready to entertain a motion.
And if I may, Chair Purnell, I would just like to remind the commissioners of the slightly modified revised resolution with the additional finding that was stated by Mr. Kleiser at the beginning of the meeting.
Great, and you know, typically we have the commissioner from the district make the motion, but I see that we do not have our new appointment for District 4, so we will be looking for somebody else here today to make the motion.
Marie Jones is District 4.
Oh, thank you.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm District 4. So I'd like to move that we approve use permit UR 2020-0011, subject to the special conditions and requirements as amended by the staff report earlier today.
I second.
Commissioner Jones,
Aye, sorry.
Commissioner Wiedemann,
Yes.
Commissioner Pollan,
Yes.
Commissioner Nelson,
Yes.
Chair Purnell.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 5-0.
Wonderful.
Okay, great. And sorry about that, Marie. I'm still logging in our new commissioners and their geographic areas.
Well, now that I know that there's a tradition that I should be putting forward the motion when it's in District 4, I'll pipe up next time.
Very good. Okay, moving on to item 7, matters from staff.
I have no matters from staff today, thank you, but are available for questions.
Okay, item number 8, matters from the commission.
I have nothing.
Okay, Cliff.
Just a quick question for County Council. If commissioners have questions for you, what's the best way to contact your office and get you directly?
Deputy County Counsel Matthew Kudrowski. I think we can circulate my email. There's also our other emails up front, and we have our phone number as well for our front office. I can have staff circulate those to the commissioners after the meeting.
Yes, we can do that.
Thank you.
And I did have a question for staff to see if there were any updates that came before the Board of Supervisors regarding the composition of the Planning Commission.
Thank you very much. We missed that, I think, at the beginning of the meeting. So yes, there was actually on February 23rd, the second reading of the ordinance to modify the makeup of the Planning Commission was approved on the consent calendar by the board. So there is approximately a 30-day period before that, and not approximately, there is a 30-day period before that becomes effective. And so I'll have to do the math in my head, but it looks like, after the second meeting in March, so, it looks like there might be one more meeting with a 7 makeup of the commission, and then it will be modified down to 5. And I'm unsure if Deputy County Counsel Matthew Kudrowski has anything to add.
Deputy County Counsel Matthew Kudrowski. So actually going back one step to Commissioner Pollan's comment, also any questions that if you direct those through planning staff, they're very good at getting those to me as well. So on the effective date, it is that I think the 25th, I believe, of March is when the ordinance will be effective. And as of the first meeting in April, I think we're going to be looking at doing revisions to the bylaws to reflect the revised composition of the commission. The bylaws in multiple places speak to a 7-member commission.
Okay, and Commissioner Wiedemann?
I had a question about, we have a meeting scheduled for the Planning Commission for March 19th, and it's the cannabis workshop. And I believe that starts at 9. When are we going to get the package for that?
You will be getting the package next week here on that ordinance. I would be more than happy to send you that. I believe we already send out the link to where it is as well, so you don't have to wait for it to come through the mail necessarily. But I do want to be clear that it is not a workshop. This is actually going to be your formal report and recommendation to the Board of Supervisors on this.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That's why we put it on one special meeting, so there's plenty of time. You will not be feeling the pressure to have to, quickly run through it, because there will not be other items on the agenda other than it'll be cannabis cultivation and cannabis facilities. The facilities usually tend to be a little bit of a simpler discussion. Cultivation is probably going to be the longest discussion.
Right. And if we have questions, once I read that report, who do I direct my questions to?
Please contact me.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other matters from the commission? Yeah, Cliff.
Julia, I don't think we have received that electronically yet. And I note it's not up on the website for the March 19th meeting either. So
yes, the requirement is a 10-day notice, so those items will be posted no later than March 9th.
Okay, but you do think you will be sending out an electronic version of that packet?
I can make a point to do that, so that way you're able to review it as soon as possible.
Thank you. And then one other question: just has Supervisor Mulhern made any indications about appointing a commissioner to the Planning Commission yet?
This is Julia Krog, Assistant Director. I actually was going to be looking at the agenda for their meeting on March 9th to see whether or not any appointments were listed on there. That agenda has not yet been posted when I looked this morning. So typically I'm not necessarily in the loop with what the supervisor may be thinking related to that, but that's at least the limited update I have for you right now.
Thank you.
And I have a quick question. Do you know when the Oak Woodlands ordinance is going to come forward for us to?
Well, on March 9th, in front of the Board of Supervisors, we are taking an item to receive some additional direction from them in regards to the previous, comments we received at the Planning Commission workshop and from constituents and agencies within the county. So we're going to be seeking some direction from the Board of Supervisors. You, of course, are able to view that online on the YouTube channel. And after that point, depending on the direction received, we'll either be looking to amend the ordinance and reschedule, or we'll have a little bit of a better picture after March 9th. So I think at the meeting on the 18th, we might be able to provide a little bit more of an update to the commissioners.
Great, thanks.
Okay, moving on to item 9A, approval of minutes from December 17th, 2020. In reviewing these, I did notice on page 5 under item 8 matters for the commission, the last sentence, he stated that the executive office was in the process of, is that supposed to be filing or filling? It's currently written as filing.
It should be filling.
Okay, let's get that extra L in there.
Yeah. Perfect.
Any other corrections or questions from commissioners on these minutes? Okay, seeing none, we're looking for a motion.
All right, I approve the minutes just to get the business moving forward.
I'll second it. Sorry.
Commissioner Wiedemann,
Yes.
Commissioner Pollan,
Yes.
Commissioner Jones,
Yes.
Commissioner Nelson,
I'm going to recuse myself as I was recused for the majority of the meeting.
Chair Purnell.
Yes.
Motion, minutes pass 4-1.
Okay, well, we're on to our last item, which is adjournment.
I'll move approval.
I second.
Very good. Thank you, everybody. Our meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, commissioners. See you on the 18th.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Send all that work.
Yeah, will do.
Thank you.